If you keep it simple, you stick to the plan, you can really be successful at this. So we're now joined by Justin, we have Pedro and Darren, the two gentlemen that were already here with us. And we were talking about what stops you from making your invention or turning your idea into a reality. I think, as we were talking off camera a moment ago, what we were saying is the obstacle actually is knowing which tools you need to build your prototype more than anything. We were talking about how can you explain that invention to others? How can you design one as a prototype and get it to work? And then how can you take it further? And that depends on what type of product it is, and we're going to go into a little more detail about that. So, Darren, you were talking about a product that's a kitchen appliance, if you don't mind me saying.
Right.
And that kitchen appliance, and we'll call it a blender for now. Let's say you have an idea for a blender. I think that's close enough to describe what we're talking about. Obviously, you have parts in it, motors, electrical power, switches, maybe a little computer controller. You know, there's quite a few complex things in there. However, the only thing that's really stopping you from making your prototype is your ability to make one. Not to make 1,000, not to make 10,000, not even to make 100, just to make one. And what you really need to understand is tools. The tools that you need to start building your prototype. And for now, I think the first step is forget about building one that you hold in your hands. What you need to start thinking about is creating a 3D model. Something that you can visualize on the computer. Something that you can rotate around and look at the parts. You could build, and we were talking about this off camera, but you could build an entire car virtually. Every nut, every bolt, every wire, everything in a program called Solidworks or Autocad. And it may sound like, oh my God, you have to go to school and get your master's and learn this stuff. Yeah. You don't. Autocad offers student and free versions of their software. You can go to YouTube and watch for hours if you're a good learner the videos that show you how to get started. But in the end, they're very, very simple. They just look complicated. That's the SolidWorks, which I happen to be an expert in now. It's taken me years to get there. But really, there's like 3 steps. You draw a sketch, you extrude it, you draw your next sketch. You just literally, it's sketch, 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 sketch. You know, a good example, and it's right behind your head, is the Invention Therapy logo. That's a 2-dimensional object, okay? It doesn't really have width, although it does have width, but as far as AutoCAD or SolidWorks is concerned, it's really just an outline. And it's a sketch. Somebody sat here and drew a gear, drew those letters. It's literally just a bunch of pencil lines. And that's how all that was created on a laser. Now, that's 2-dimensional. Imagine now you take that gear, let's say, and you pull it off the wall, and it becomes a tube in that same shape. Well, now suddenly it looks like an Italian piece of pasta, but it's now a 3D object, and all you did was make it thicker. That's SolidWorks, that's AutoCAD. It's that simple. So, the first steps in becoming an inventor is learning how to visualize your idea and learning how to draw it. Yes, you can sketch it. You can sit with a pencil, and if you're a great artist, that's great. But an artist, you can draw single-dimensional pictures, but an artist isn't going to be able to really pull apart that object and test it in space in terms of the computer space. Because SolidWorks is so good, or AutoCAD is so good, that every screw, every wire, every motor part, every whatever, whether it's acrylic, metal, plastic, you name it, if you can draw it, it exists in 3D as a real part. Not real in our hands, but what you see on the screen is what your product is going to look like. So think about that. So now you've drawn something in a computer and you think it's going to work. Now, we all know what 3D printers are, but do you use them? We have a few here. In fact, there's one off camera and we don't need to show it. But 3D printers, there's a lot of talk about them and all these things that people are making, but how many people are actually out there inventing with them and talking about it? I don't think you see that. And that's where you take what the community is doing and the 3D printers and all the things people are talking about, and you learn as an inventor to adapt what they're doing to build your product. And you weren't here for this, but I'm not a maker. I'm a professional inventor. I invent products. I've been doing it for 15 years. I make my living doing it. So my job is simply to invent products that people want to buy. It's not about community for me. My community is you guys, my audience, my customers. So I do these shows so that I can get traffic to my website to sell more product, because that's what I do. I'm an inventor. There's nothing wrong with that. And what I'm starting to say now publicly is I've been doing it for 15 years. You can too. I know you came here from a job and you got to the show late. And I was saying before you got here that the best position to be in is to have a full-time job and invent some simple product that you can sell online. You can, and I have a number, and I said it's $50,000 a year. That's my mark. That's the number I know that people can make with very little effort and just a little hard work. It's not like you need to give up everything and do it. You just need weekends and a couple hours a night. If you're into that and you're watching TV and you do this instead, before you know it, you're selling stuff online. Then before you know it, you're waking up and you're going, wait a minute, that job that I had full time, suddenly my invention's making me more money. Suddenly now I got to start thinking about maybe not in my garage, maybe coming into a building like this or doing other things. That all happens naturally if you're just putting in the time. And they can live separately, your full-time job and your life on the internet. Beauty of the internet is nobody even has to know you're doing it if you so wish. It's the brand, it's the website. There's no name on people's websites. I choose to be known on the internet because I invent things that are new, different, and sometimes basically from the ground up, people are investing in me before the product even exists. So my face is out there so that they can trust me. But you don't have to do that. But back to this kitchen appliance. So now you've invented it on a 3D model and you're rotating it on the screen and you've been spending months on this thing. But it's working because, by the way, in these CAD programs, you can actually check the gears and the movement and everything. So
you can test it before you even...
You can test it on the screen and change everything instantaneously.
That's great.
And believe me, and then you can forget to save the file and have to start over and all that other stuff too. The same thing as any other computer. But the point is that it's a tool that gives you an amazing opportunity. Now, imagine this. So let's say you want to create this blender and you've done your math and it's $20,000, let's say, to invest to make your prototype. And I'm making up a number. But it's $20,000 and we'll pretend for a moment you can't afford it. For whatever reason, you just don't have $20,000. Well, the beauty of a 3D model is now you have something to show people who may want to invest in your idea with you. Maybe there's a machine shop that needs work, because we were talking about that a little earlier. And maybe they're willing on their off time just to make those parts for you. And maybe it won't be what it's going to be the commercial product. Maybe it'll be that one-off blender that, when you plug it in, it has one speed. It doesn't have a fancy computer on it or any of those things, because you don't know how to do that stuff and you need to find somebody that does. And we won't even get into the fact that since you're selling an appliance, it has to be UL listed and all these other things that cost a fortune, and you keep going and you have to know all these things. And then I'll talk you out of putting a 120 volt cord on it and tell you it needs to have a 12 volt power supply, because then you eliminate the UL listing. So if you know all these things, you know how to get around them without spending $50,000 with UL laboratories just to get that certification. You just design it another way that it doesn't violate any of the laws in the US, that it's legal to sell it without certain certifications. So if the power supply is already UL listed, you can get that from a supplier UL listed. You don't need the rest of it UL listed because it's now a low voltage device. You power it by 12 volts. I'm just giving you an example of things that we do as inventors to get around those expensive investments where we don't want to spend our money.
I'm just thinking out loud, does the state, the government, like you're saying, how do I say this? Do they require you to use a different type of cord?
There's a lot of laws when it comes to electricity. There's a lot of laws with pretty much any type of appliance. We were talking about teddy bears earlier. I don't know why teddy bears was the big thing, different colored teddy bears. But teddy bears would be an example of something that you have chemicals with children and things like that could require certain things. So all of your products may or may not have restrictions or rules that they have to be built around. That's part of Google and learning what those rules are. So
if I don't know, if it's the government telling you this has to be this way,
it doesn't work that way. The government doesn't tell you anything. You've already released your product and then you have to deal with them.
Okay.
I'll give you an example about a product that I built, 12, 13 years ago now. They told me that it had to be FCC certified.
Yeah, that's kind of what
it was a radio device that had to be FCC certified. It was a low voltage device, less than 3 volts. It was GPS, and everybody can figure out from there what product this is. And they told me that I had to get a certain certification, I had to go to certain labs and all this. But the government is very helpful. They have helplines, they have a lot of documentation. It's hard to figure out. You have to get somebody on the phone and talk to them. And I was talking to this government employee who was very helpful. And we're going through all the paperwork that I'm gonna need to certify this thing. And he gets to a line where he says, or you could self-certify it. And then he keeps going. And then obviously I said, what did you say? Oh, no, we don't want to talk about that one. He says, oh, yes, we do. He says, well, you have a low voltage device and you have to do the following things. And I forget at this point, I mean, it's been a long time, but there was a bunch of hoops I had to run through with research, have an engineer look things up. I think it was $500 versus $15,000. I literally, once I had the information from the engineer, just had to do on company letterhead a document that says this meets FCC code to this number, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember the way it was written, but it's somewhere online. But anyway, I self-certified it. Had I not heard that simple sentence from that guy, I would have spent $15,000 with some lab that I never needed.
A lot of people, that's one reason why they go to that brick wall and don't make their
right, and this is where your responsibility lies. So you, as an inventor, have to research all this stuff and not be scared of it. Remember, everything is an obstacle that can be overcome. It's that simple. It's just a challenge, and if you make it fun, you can do it. So, Justin, you're new to this.
Right.
So, are you looking to be an inventor?
Yeah, I have an idea. I've been working on it for a while.
Okay.
Still having some issues with the technical side of it. I feel like I'll be a bit better on the business side of it, but gotta get.
Is it a complicated product?
It's not that complicated.
Is it something you can build a prototype fairly easy? And we don't talk about what the inventions are. So, because there's really no need to.
Right.
Because when you weren't here, we were talking about good ideas versus bad ideas. Mm-hmm. I don't know what a good idea is. You don't know what a good idea is. We also don't know what a bad idea is. What we know is that we like something that we're going to invent. And we think that other people may like it too. Mm-hmm. But we never will know the outcome. So we have to be prepared for that. And what we were talking about, we mentioned teddy bears. I was saying that with children, you invent a product, let's say a teddy bear, but then you discover they like the pink ones instead of the brown ones. Mm. A lot of people who create things that aren't really inventors, I've seen this, they will focus on the fact that their teddy bear must be brown when they have the opportunity to sell 20 times the amount if they were pink, and they will not budge. Or I have heard people say, I worked really hard at this brand and it's selling and I'm going to build it to something, and that may be true. But somebody comes along and offers them a lot of money to buy them out. I mean a lot of money. They never have to work a day in their life. I've seen this happen. And they get on their high horse that, no, this is my baby. Mm-hmm. And you know what happens over years? Their business never kind of grows to where they thought it was, and the opportunity was when they bought it out, because they were too attached to the idea and not to being an inventor. The idea is just one of those tools we were talking about earlier. I get ideas every night. I don't act on all of them. Sometimes I go into the garage and I do. I come out the next morning with something that I built. That's true, that's how I work. But we don't act on all those ideas, but the ideas are just tools along the way. If you're stuck on that one idea, that's the one that's gonna make you $1 million, I think I mentioned it earlier, my dentist has an idea for an invention. He needs to stick to doing teeth. I wouldn't tell him how to drill, holes in my teeth. Everybody has ideas. You need to say, I need to just make this thing work. Mm-hmm. And that's it. You forget about everything else. Just say, here's the idea. How can I put it in my hands or on the computer, like we were talking about a little earlier? Learn the tool to make it happen. Learn one tool at a time. If you need to program, like we were talking earlier, learn Visual Basic. Go buy a book on BASIC from the 80s, that Bill Gates probably wrote at this point. That's one of the first simple books. It's basic programming language. It may sound like, why would I want to learn that? It's the most basic language, coincidentally, and it'll teach you the skill set you need to learn how programmers think. Mm-hmm. You then go to the next level, which is Visual Basic, and then C. And then if you can get that far, then you could probably get a really good paying job anyway. But the point is that if that's the tools that you need, then that's what you have to do. Earlier we were talking about the GPS device, which is TrackStick. I invented TrackStick 12 years ago now, before there was Arduino, before there was any kind of libraries online that you could write software, before there was any boards that you could buy off the shelf just to wire things together. I taught myself how to program those chips. And I programmed all the GPS location data into those chips and learned how the GPS satellites communicate. And I did that by reading. And my mind burned out. If you sat me down right now to build a second device like that, I couldn't do it. I would not be able to do it because I forgot everything I learned. That was the tools I needed 13 years ago. Those are not the tools I need now. Now I need to be an expert in SolidWorks. Now I need to be an expert in Eagle and some other electronic design programs that are used to design our boards. Those are the tools I need. I need to be an expert at electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. Maybe next week it'll be something else. Maybe it'll be web design. Maybe it'll be Photoshop. We're doing this show, by the way. I'm a pseudo expert in filmmaking or TV shows. So, I've been doing that for years too. It's whatever tools we need to be where we want to go. And this idea that maybe I'm different, no. You know what the difference is? And my brother once told me this. He said the difference between me and other people is when somebody says, hey, do you think you can do this? I just say, sure, I'll give it a try. Everybody else says, I'm not sure. I'll just say, yeah, I'll try it. Now, you may think I'm lying. You may say, oh, he's a bullshitter. You may say all these things, but I just don't have it in me to say no. It just looks cool to do. I'll do it. Don't get me wrong, I won't jump off a building, but I have swam with sharks. So, I've swam with sharks 12 times. I won't do it now, my wife doesn't let me. But the point is that, there's nothing wrong with taking a challenge because you might be surprised. Computer programming today isn't for nerds. SolidWorks is actually a really cool thing to learn. I like SolidWorks, if you haven't figured that out. AutoCAD, I'm not really a big fan. So if I was telling somebody to learn something, SolidWorks, go online, you can read all about it and learn it. And there's probably, demo programs, although SolidWorks maybe not, but AutoCAD does have it. So, SolidWorks is about $4,000 for a license, but I think they have student ones, but it's still probably $1,000. I think they have some online ones. It might be cheaper now. But I'm pushing SolidWorks because if you look at the world and car design, in appliance design, that tends to be Dyson vacuum cleaners would be a good example. I'm pretty sure they're using SolidWorks. I could be wrong. They might be using AutoCAD, But SolidWorks is more known as the design one, where AutoCAD is more of if you're building submarines or tanks or industrial things like big plants with, just lots of mechanical things. That's when I think of AutoCAD. I don't think of AutoCAD in terms of, although they do have AutoCAD Inventor and you can download that. I believe there is a free license for that. So if that works for you, try it. Use whichever one works for you. But again, so if you can get it into SolidWorks or AutoCAD and you can get yourself a 3D model, you can 3D print it in plastic. And you don't need a 3D printer. You can go on a website and put in your credit card and they'll mail it to you, a couple of days later. You don't need the tools. You don't need the physical tools.
Yeah.
You need the tools, the personal tools.
Right.
So these are things to think about. It's, okay, what tools do I need? How am I going to do it? And where do I go? You can always send me an email or call me and say, hey, what do I need to do this? Especially off camera when we're not sharing your ideas with other people. But, what do I need to get this done? And I might say to you, it's beyond your skill. It's beyond your finances. It's beyond whatever. But I also might say, but you can do it this way and it'll be cheaper. Or have you thought of, instead of making this big grandiose, blender, turn it into a soup bowl? I'm just, whatever, because there's a piece of your idea that might work otherwise.
The one color teddy bear.
So we were talking about the internet and pricing and what people are willing to pay. And we started by talking that years ago, refrigerator magnets at $25 a bundle was one of the most popular things on the internet. This is in the beginning days of the internet, because travelers forget to buy refrigerator magnets of where they've been. And I read a book about a guy who sold, bundles of them. They were $5 a piece or $25 with free shipping. So he was always selling $25 at a time. So imagine you get a few couple hundred customers a week, you're making good money selling stupid refrigerator magnets. So, but as the internet has progressed, the power of the dollar or the euro, because I was saying that 60% of my business comes out from outside the US, the power of the dollar and the euro is amazing in that it's no longer $25 that people are willing to spend. I like between 150 and 300. My products these days are about $250 to $400, but there are people spending $2,000, $3,000 on a regular basis buying my stuff and more. So, it's not what you think. You don't know what people are going to buy. So your job is to take your idea, make it, stick it up there, and crush your fingers. Crush your fingers with hard work, though. If you know how to drive traffic, if you know how to get somebody to enter their credit card in, and you have a product to sell, you're home. Unless you just have a really dumb idea. And we don't know that. I don't know that my ideas are, believe me, I've had some dumb ones, but I've had some great ones too. I don't care, I just try them. My wife has told me, that'll never work. Those are always my best selling ones. So that's just the way it is. And then when I tell her I have a great idea, oh, here we go again. And that's the one that doesn't work. But anyway, the point is that we don't know what's gonna work and what's not, so why bother trying? The journey is what you wanna do. So you need to invent a product, and you need to do that by prototyping it first. Then you need to figure out, are you gonna invest in manufacturing a few hundred, a few thousand, depending on what it is and quantities you need? Or are you gonna go a different direction like I have? I've done both versions where you crowdfund it. When I started, that didn't exist. So I had to get investors. I had shareholders in my original company. I later bought them out, but I had people who invested. That's no longer really necessary. You can get on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, say, hey, I built one, it works, here it is. Do you want one too? It's that simple. So really, your only investment is time and figuring out how to build that prototype. And what I'll say is the same thing that I do. Figure out how to simplify your ideas so much that you can build it. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't build a rocket ship. Don't build a car. Build a skateboard. You know, turn whatever that idea is into something simpler and then journey towards whatever the bigger idea is. That's how I do it. But I have very complicated ideas that I would love to be able to build. I mean, you know, camera things for the movie industry that would take me months and years to just make one. Why bother when I can spend 2 weeks designing something, get it on the internet, and start selling? One's for ego, the other is we're inventors, and we're here to make a profit and make money. The dirty word that I talk about in my other videos. You know, profit's a dirty word for some people. And I don't think we talked about this, and we should in the show before we end it. And that is, let's say that you've decided that you want to make your blender. You're ready to go for it. You've built your prototype. And for whatever reason, you're going to test the market and you're going to put them on the web. We won't even say that you have them in stock or not. It doesn't matter. You're going to sell them on the web. These blenders cost you $78 to your door from China, from the US, it doesn't matter, wherever you're making them. They're $78 a piece for you, not including shipping to the customer. It costs you $78. How much are you going to sell that for?
$150.
Why wouldn't you'll be out of business tomorrow?
I don't know.
That's it. 2.5 times.
2.5 times.
2.5 times is what you're going to figure out. So if that blender is not worth 78 times 2.5, whatever that comes out to be, then you need to figure out how to get the cost down, or you're going to have to sell it at that higher price. This is the problem. You don't do it in reverse. Because let's say you decide at $150 because you like the sound of that price, and it's costing you $78. Well, a blender is a big piece of equipment. And the Chinese manufacturer is going to tell you need 1,000 of them before we can even give it to you at $78. So that's $78,000 you've invested. Then you have to rent the cargo container to ship, which I think probably about $5,000 to ship all those over here. So you've invested basically $85,000, we'll call it at this point, in product. You got to store 1,000, blenders somewhere. Where are you getting the money to store it? Even if you just get a storage unit and spend $300 a month or whatever, you still have to spend that money. By the time you are done, that $78, I guarantee you, is times 2.5. That's what I have learned. And even if you are the best at this, and it only costs you 1.5 times, you're gonna screw it up along the way, and that extra one point on that money, that extra $78, you're gonna lose it. Because that's how it works. You're gonna learn, and then you're gonna take the next 1,000, and that's where you're gonna make your money. Or you're gonna be stuck with 1,000 blenders, and that's where you say to yourself, am I willing to take that chance? Because I got a bunch of products I'll sell you. I got molds sitting in warehouses for great ideas that I've invested $30, $40, $50,000 in. I didn't sell 10 of them. Oh, wow. Because I thought I was good at what I did. I got arrogant, thought I was great, thought I knew the market, thought I was smarter than everybody else. And I've learned the same thing that I'm telling you. It just doesn't work that way. If you keep it simple, you stick to the plan, you can really be successful at this. And we're gonna talk, and I hope you guys will show up again in the future, but we're gonna talk in the future about very simple websites and ideas that you guys can actually take and make your own versions of, maybe in certain niche markets that you like, and do things simple where you can invest maybe a few $1,000s, maybe even just a few hundred. You'd be surprised sometimes. It's literally $12 for a year to start a website, just to give you an idea of how cheap it is. With GoDaddy, Google it, $12 hosting. You get a URL and you get your hosting. So that's your rent, your building, your office space is $12 a year. So you're already in business if you can get that far. Then you have to just figure out a product to stick onto that website. Now, obviously, it all goes together. So you need a product, a brand name, a website URL. And you don't invent one without the other, but you don't necessarily invent the product before the website or the other way around. It all happens at the same time. That's the brand. That's the Sound Laser brand. That's the Trackstick brand. That's my Sonic Levitation brand. There's all these different brands. I call them properties. Those all happen together at the same time as I'm inventing them. I don't come up with a name, I don't come up with a product, at a different time. It all just kind of happens at the same time. That's the process. And that's the way you need to think. So Blendtec, as an example, we'll go back to that. Blendtec is a brand. You may know the brand from YouTube. They blend iPhones in their blenders. They're in every Starbucks, the Blendtec brand. They're a huge company. They did it through YouTube videos years ago by just smashing things and showing how good their blenders were.
Will it blend?
Right,
Yeah.
will it blend, yeah. So the point is that the name, the blender, all that is a package that goes together to generate sales. And they're all fun things along the way that you can do. You just have to do it. I mean, you just have to start somewhere. And I say start by creating your model in 3D. It's that simple. That's the first step. So I hope this has helped. And we'll be answering a lot of other questions in future episodes. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope that this therapy session has helped and gotten some of that stuff out of your brain, but in the future we'll try to get some more. So thank you, and thank you guys for watching.